first up, we're going to be looking at the evil commanders. So here's the tier list of where I ranked them with input from myself and primarily for evil, other people's viewpoints and what they've tested in the minimal testing that they've been able to do. So this list for evil is still in debate because it can change and fluctuate quite a lot because there's still a lot that we don't know because we just got them at the end of beta 3. So there's still a lot we have to learn. So without further ado, we have Sauron at the top here. This is Sauron. Sauron at the top here. You're going to want to focus on his R1 top, R3, and R5 titles and skills for his build. Next up is going to be at the superior, we got the Undying. So for the Undying, you're going to want to focus on his R1 bottom tree as well his R3 title and skills. So this guy, both of them are T3 commanders, so it's going to be hard for those that are free to play to get, but you can eventually get them, maybe not season 1 or season 2, but at some point, or if you're real lucky you could, at some point you'll be able to get them down the road. So these are the two that you want to focus on as the evil side, and those are the ones you're going to want to look at. Next up, we have Saruman. He's going to be here, and for him, you basically, same thing, the top tree for R1, his R3 skills, and his R5 title seem to be sort of the way people want to go. And then LOTR, or however you want to say his name, is here. Pretty good. Everyone seems to like him. He's basically the Legolas of the evil side because he's known as an attack commander. So he puts out a good amount of damage himself in the battle. So that's why people are picking him. And same thing, you sort of want to focus on the top tree of R1, his R3 title and skills. And you could do the R5 skill. You could put a point there, a couple points if you wanted to. Then we got this guy. A lot of people think for some reason he should be down here, but I don't. I think he's up here in this tier A+ with these guys, because when I'm playing and I come across him on a tile, and it's a tile where it's like, oh, I'm going to try, or I'm going to try to push, or I'm going to try to challenge this, I end up losing. I could fight any of these other ones, and I'll probably win if I try to challenge. But if I go for him and I'm not prepared, and my commander isn't good enough, I'm going to lose. So it's one of those ones where you can't take him on unless you're really better than him. Like, if he's level 40, you have to be higher than level 40 to take him on. You can't be challenging at level 38 this guy when you come across him on a tile, but who knows. And then we got the Witch King, same deal, another tier 3. The Black Serpent, tier 3 here. He's an A, could be a B+, depending on who you ask. And then we got Grima. Grima is an A, but we're going to bump him up to an A+ because he's free to play. You have him as an R1 commander, and it's pretty easy to get. Like, you may not get him right off the bat. I don't believe he's one of the starting commanders unless he's the one for Isengard, but I don't think he is. You get him pretty easily within like a week or two of the season starting. So I would focus on him, and you want to focus on his top R1 skill, his R3 sort of type deal, and his R5. Like, you sort of can't really go too wrong with him for his titles, because you sort of want all his titles, put some skill into them, and then his skill, the blue ones, you sort of want to focus on his R5 ones with the bottom of R3 and the top of R1, that skill up there, but you don't have to max those out with him, which is a nice thing. You just sort of put a couple points here and there, and he does decent. Obviously, if you don't get to R5, no biggie. You can still keep him as an R1, or even get him to R3 will help you out some. But again, it's nice. He's an R1. You can get him pretty easily, so that's why we bumped him up to an A+. Then we got the rest of these guys. This guy right here, a lot of people are ranking him down here, but I enjoy playing with him, which is why I have him ranked up here ahead of these guys, because I enjoy having him, and he seems to do a good job for me, especially if you have evil men. And if you start as Rune, he's the commander you're going to start with, and you have evil men as the primary audience, you're going to have Dragoons, which are probably one of the better troops for evil to have, and you pair them with him, they get a bit of a buff as well. Not so much in like the stats department, but when they're attacking and stuff and all that other stuff, he helps out in that regard. This guy, some people are putting up here. I like him here because you have to have him as an R3 and R5. You can't have him as an R1 and be like, oh, this guy is good, everyone says he's good. If he's an R1, he almost could be a B if he's just an R1. You need him to be an R3 or an R5 in order to be in the conversation. So that's why we're putting him as a B+. If he's just an R1, he probably will be a B. If you have him as an R3 or an R5, we're starting to talk about the A spot for him. So with that being said, moving on. These are probably the 3 commanders you want to avoid. No one seems to like. This guy, looking at his stats of this guy, you would think he would be an alright commander, but for some reason no one is getting really good results with him, and everyone that challenges him on a tile and whatnot seems to come out pretty easily with the victory for the most part, as long as you're not stretching. And then for Siege, you're going to want to look at these guys. This one is the same for the good side. In the bottom R1 tree as a skill, it gives +1. You max it out to +7. That gives 7+ siege to your troops that are with them. This guy, if you get him to an R5, his last skill on the top is +4. I haven't seen any pictures or anyone else so I really talk about it, but if that's a +4, does he increase by 1? Or is he increasing by 4 each time you put a point into it? For some reason I'm thinking it increases by 4 each time you put a point into it. So this guy, if that's the case, he increases by 4. 4 times 7, you're looking at a pretty good commander for basically nothing. That's what? 7 times 4 is what? 20, is that 28? I think. I can't do the math off the top of my head. But that's 28 plus for siege damage just for him that he adds to the troops. So that's why they're down here. So without further ado, that's your evil commanders. Hopefully you guys find it helpful. Don't forget, down below, hit the like button and leave your comments for where you think a commander should be, because I could be completely out to lunch on a couple of them, but for the most part I think I'm somewhat accurate. A couple of them maybe up 1 or down 1 for the most part, but it's all comes down to personal preference at the end of the day. So without further ado, let's move on to the good commanders. Before we kick off the tier list for the good commanders, we're going to look at this report here. In this report, you would think Legolas, because he's 39 versus 36, and the troop commands are basically the same. I'm not going to do the math off the top of my head here to do this, but they look basically the same. You would think Gimli wouldn't be able to draw this result, but that doesn't tell the whole story. We're going to look here. Gimli's actually doing heal damage. Legolas is doing none, but that's to be expected. Legolas is known as a commander to put down attack, so he's putting down attack. But when we look at the commanders, we see here, this guy's most likely, he may not be a pay whale, but he's definitely paying to play the game, as he has 4 pieces of gold gear. He pretty well has the right setup, as you can see here, with the skills for and titles for Legolas that you should have. These are the troops he has. As you can see, 101. Keep that in mind for later. These are what he's using, which isn't bad. It's a okay setup for Legolas. We're going to look at Gimli. This guy probably isn't a pay whale, but he's pretty close. As you can see, his gear is maxed out. This is what he's using. He has protection of Protect Elves on, which is the right setup for Gimli with these troops. We have level 5, level 4, a level 2, and plain level. We're going to look here. Remember 101, 105 is his defense for these troops. That's a huge increase of 49 for defense. His bow knights aren't getting anything. Why is that? Because of gear. Selecting the right gear for a commander is vitally important to helping you maybe succeed in areas that would be close. So for here, he has basically the right setup with the right gear for Gimli. He's going with might, defense for dwarves 21, and that's level 5 for the Warhammer. The might 15, defense for meal 15. The helmet, might, and defense for dwarves increases. And then this, same thing, but instead it's a couple points for HP for the dwarves. So he has the right setup, and that's why he won this battle. He had more gear leveled better and had him attached to the right commander, as opposed to Legolas, who basically had plain gold gear, and Gimli had purple gear that was leveled. That was the huge difference in this fight, why Gimli basically is going to, if this draw continued, Gimli would win this fight over Legolas. So let's continue on. Alright, so for the good commander tier list, we're going to go with Gandalf the White at the top. You will need him as an R3, R5 to get those titles in order to get his full potential. And then something that can be very controversial is me placing Radagast way up here. Most people would sort of put Radagast as an A, maybe a B, because they probably haven't tested him. They maybe didn't use him to his full ability. But I'm going off of Sadlamp. I think that's how you pronounce it at least. He seems to love Radagast. And Radagast is like one of his commanders that is his primary, and he loves using them. And he says nothing but like good things about Radagast the Brown. So I'm going to go off that. I'm going to put him up here at the top. I have yet to be able to play with him myself personally, so I'm going off of sort of everyone else's feedback and their views and whatnot. And Sadlamp, for some reason, loves him and is for sure one of the people that I know has actually played with him as a commander. So that's the two commanders right at the top. Next up is the A+ category. So in here we have sort of your most standard. Everyone sort of believes these are here. Theoden's here if you have him with mounted units. If not, he would probably drop down to an A or a B+. But an A+, as long as you're using mounted units with him. And then you have Gandalf the Grey, which is an R2 commander. Sorry, a T2 commander. And he's here because he got a buff from the betas to now. The skills and titles you want for him are basically all R1 now, so it's easy to get him there, and you basically can get him for the most part by just playing. If you're free to play, it'll probably take you a bit of time. I just unlocked him a couple days ago, so for the rest of you, you should be able to unlock him by the end of the season. So you should have him for the start of season 2, so you can really focus and use him that way. He is definitely one you want to aim for, so you can have for season 2. Then we have Arwen here. Arwen is a good commander, but she could be an A, but I'm going to put her up here as an A+ because she is free to play. You can get her as a T1, and you can pretty well get her quite easily in the game and early on. Like almost all of us should be able to have her unlocked by now. I would say 95% of us that have played for more than 2 weeks, she should be unlocked for you by now. And if not, you should be aiming to unlock her. Put her with mounted units, she's unbelievable. Especially when she's R5 with mounted units, she's definitely A+. If she's not R5, then yeah, she's probably an A. But for the most part, you definitely want to focus and try to get her and use her with mounted units. Moving on, we have Arwen. Arwen is one of those commanders, doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but heals very well. Not as much as Gandalf, but pretty close. She is one of those commanders that's going to heal the troops and keep them going in battle. You probably have a lot of draws with her as a commander, as opposed to other commanders, and people are like, oh, she sucks, she doesn't do well. It's like, no, she's doing exactly what she's supposed to, and she's delaying, making the battle go longer. Because it's 10 rounds. If the battle's not finished in that time frame, you get a draw. So she is slowly wearing the enemy down. You will have draws because that's the type of commander she is. Same with Gandalf. You probably come across the same with him. But getting draws doesn't mean they're a bad commander. Especially when you're looking at like healing ability with like some of the dwarves we have down here. They're going to get draws because they're delaying the battle results and extending it. Usually it goes in your favor in those instances. Moving on to Legolas, our man. He's pretty good, but he is known as an attack commander. He will give damage upon damage, and that's what he's meant for. He's putting out that physical damage and sometimes physical focus, but that's what he's known for. He will put out physical damage. Then we move on to Éomer. Éomer and Arwen are sort of tied. He's probably a little better, but because the three of these do the same thing and they're all mounted commanders, you want to aim for Theoden over him because Theoden's a little better, and they use the same whatever token type dealio, the book or whatever it's called, to get. So you want to aim for Theoden first and then Éomer. And then moving on is my boy, my man, Gimli. I enjoy playing as Gimli. A lot of people will have Gimli like a B, a B+. I'm going to put him as an A. If you unlock him and use him properly with a dwarf wall, with archers in behind, and protect elves, and you have the right gear for him, as we saw, I showed you a little clip, he is a good commander and will do you just fine. Will he be beat out by other commanders? Yes. Will he hold his ground? Yes. So that's what I have to say about him. Moving on, we have these guys. A lot of elves are sort of around that B+ type category, and the dwarves are sort of under them for some reason. I don't know why, but that's just how it sort of went for it. Most of these are T3s, which are hard to get. So they're going to be here. This guy right here, I enjoyed playing with him. He got a massive nerf. I will inform you. He got a nerf between Beta 2 and Beta 3. Beta 1 and Beta 2, he was probably the go-to. He probably would have been up here fighting for an S. Definitely he would have been here. But because he got a nerf between Beta 2 and Beta 3, we'll put him as a B+. Moving on, we got a bunch of dwarves down here. We have Boromir down here, Aragorn. A lot of people will argue about where I placed this Aragorn here, but he's alright. His R3 stat could be good, only if you're someone who pays it in the game and you have gear that's like max level, like level 4, level 5, because that's what R3 does. Otherwise, he's not the greatest, but he will hold his own. Then we have Balin and Dwalin, basically. They're here. They do heal for the most part is one of their primaries. They are pretty decent commanders. Nothing to brag about, nothing to really complain too much about, but they'll hold their own for the most part, especially once you get them to level 50. Well, basically when you get any commander to level 50, they sort of hold their own. So, not bad. At T3, he's a little low for a T3. I suspect he'll probably get a buff at some point, you would think. So he could be at least in the conversation trying to get to an A. Because right now, me placing him as a B is pretty low for a T3 commander. Moving on, we have the C category. Denethor, not a lot of people have been able to play with him because no one really likes the character. But if you actually look into the lore of the Lord of the Rings, you find out he was pretty decent back in the day before he looked into the Palpatine too much, and it sort of to corrupt him a bit. But yeah, he's down here. Faramir, some people will put him like as a B because he's easy to get and a lot of people use him, but he's not the greatest. So we're gonna put him down here at the bottom as a commander you sort of could just like continue without. Then we got Merry and Pippin. I enjoy using Merry and Pippin, especially when I'm pathing. They're pretty good at pathing and doing stuff. I suspect they should get a bigger buff when they're using ants, because right now the buff they have with ants, they have one skill I believe it is, and it's not the greatest. So maybe they could change that at some point to help them when they're using ants. Maybe not anything else, but otherwise they fit where they should. They also can be used for tips because of their title I think they have, which leads us on to commanders that are great for tips. We got Or and Frodo and Sam. Why is Frodo and Sam down here? They're exactly where they should be. Lord of the Rings, not once did they go into massive battles and do all this stuff. They were the dudes that sort of avoided skirmishes, they avoided the battle, so they're exactly where they should be. Siege, this guy, if he's not used for siege, I would put him almost in the B+ category if you get him past an R1. R3, the red arrow I believe it is a good one for him to use. Same with R5, you could put him here, but he'll probably be around here if you only get him down R3. I enjoy playing with him, so probably around there, but I use him for sieges because he has that +7 in his R1 tree slot to give 7 siege to whatever troop he's using. So I pair him with either the beasts, or I pair him with dwarf foot soldiers because they give the most siege. +7 from him equals a pretty good siege amount. So that's that. Hopefully you guys found the video helpful. Hopefully this helps you guys move into season 2, what commanders you should focus on trying to get between now and the end of the season, so you can have them for the start of season 2 and really focus on them as we go into season 2, which is like a month away at this point. I want to say just a little over. It's like what, 4 weeks away from season 2. Some servers are sort of, I already know who's going to win. Like if you're in the first 20 servers, you sort of know who's going to win. The 100 servers, they're basically, it's one fraction and that's it, because they're so diluted with inactive people, and people joined and then left, and as they kept adding new servers. So hopefully they stop adding new servers, because people are just abandoning ship and moving to a new server. So hopefully they fix that, because it's getting a little bit out of hand, because a lot of the 100s, it's one fraction, and it's usually the elves, unfortunately. So hopefully they can fix that. Going into season 2, once we start merging servers, it will be a lot better, and there'll be a lot more PvP, especially in those lower servers like the first 50. A lot of actual PvP. It won't be one fraction will easily win, and people will realize you can't just abandon ship because that fraction looks like they're going to win. You actually have to play it out. Like, get alliances. Form alliances with another fraction. See how the game goes. Meet up with somebody else. See how that works out for you. And go from that, and hopefully that will help you. And yeah, there you have it. There's an example of a commander and basically the proper build with sort of someone who's paying some money to get there. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy, and till next time, stay safe, and as always, have fun.